The Middle East conflict is over 60 years old and there's no end in sight. The latest attempt to revive peace talks aims at focusing on agreements on borders and security while leaving tricky issues like Jerusalem and refugees to one side. While the European Union Foreign Affairs Chief Catherine Ashton is in the region this week, the Israeli Minister for Information, Yuli Yoel Edelstein, is here in Brussels. Okay, Minister, thank you very much for meeting me here today for a coffee. You are, of course, the Minister for Information and Diaspora, so your job is to kind of promote Israel's image in the world and get Israel's message across. But in the last few months, the message that we've been reading about Israel in the media has not been so positive. There's been reports and leaks, EU reports that has been describing the treatment of Arab Israel citizens and the forcing of Palestinians out of the Jordan Valley and out of East Jerusalem. Then we had the French government saying that what was going on, they described it as water apartheid over the way settlers are monopolising water. So have you come here to Europe to kind of defend yourself or counter all of this?
Well, you're very gracious. You're talking about the last several months. I think that unfortunately these attempts to bash Israel and basically to undermine its very legitimacy has been around for years, if not for decades.
Well, I don't think they're trying to bash Israel. They're just literally reports that we've found statistics and information that have backed them up. So it's not.
I would definitely no. I'm not on the defensive. I promise you. And if you ask me whether I've come here to defend Israel, no, it's not a military action. My great advantage is that I don't have to lie and I don't have to think of clever tactics. The truth about Israel is very different. Even if you take this terrible word apartheid, I think it's a great damage to those who were really fighting apartheid, say in South Africa, and they won. To call something that is so distant from apartheid. You know, I've read these outrageous reports about Israel ousting Palestinians out of Jerusalem, or Israel using the water resources in order to, to cause trouble to the Palestinians. Between these things and the truth, there is even no common denominator. So,
just according to the reports, it said that back in '72 there were 1,200 Jewish settlers in the West Bank, and now there are over 300,000, while the Palestinian population is less than half it was. So these are the figures that we're being faced with here.
The Palestinian population is growing constantly, including in Judea and Samaria. To remind you that if you are referring to 30 years ago, in Gaza Strip, there were Jewish communities. They were, I can even add, unfortunately, all evacuated 6 years ago. And instead of getting peace, because as we all know, and as some explained to us, settlements are the main obstacle to peace. So my question is, there are no Jews in Gaza, no Israelis, no soldiers, no one. How come we don't have peace? We have 10,000 missile rockets coming from Gaza, hitting places, towns and cities in Israel that are seemingly not part of this whole dispute over the so-called territories. So I think that the roots of the conflict are much deeper than that. And I would dare say that giving the accurate picture helps looking for a solution. When I read some reports of the EU representatives, they call it the heads of delegations to the Palestinian Authority, talking about apartheid and things of that kind, I'm kind of getting myself the doubt, or I kind of doubt whether they really are talking about promoting peace. It's unfortunately it is about bashing Israel.
Well, let's go back to the settlements. Why do you keep building settlements if it is peace that you want, if the Quartet and the US included keep telling you to stop?
Because I, first of all, already mentioned that I don't consider that this is the obstacle to peace. When the idea of future peace is that there will be a high wall, barbed wire, Jews on this side and Arabs on that side, this is not my idea of peace. Actually, I would even dare say that I, for one, don't know of any Caesars that could cut the map in such an accurate way that no Jews will see the Arabs and no Arabs will see the Jews. This is not my idea. I totally understand that there will be territorial changes, that there will be one-day borders, that there will be a kind of an arrangement. When it happens, I don't know. In the meanwhile, my government and my prime minister has been saying, please come, sit down, let's negotiate without any preconditions. And we hear the answers from the Palestinian side. No, first promise to us that you, agree to divide Jerusalem, you agree to go to these borders or to those borders, and then we'll probably come and negotiate. What are you going to negotiate about if not about borders and future arrangements? But having said all that, I think that we have to understand that the result of the growth of the Jewish population in Judea and Samaria is not the decline of the Palestinian population. People want to live side by side. They can perfectly live by side. By the way, to remind us all that 20% of the population of Israel inside the so-called Green Line is Arabs, and they have a lot of support from the government and have all the equal rights, the same way I have rights, and I have a lot of them as my colleagues in the Knesset.
Okay, and just another issue that the EU is a bit concerned about, and EU countries in the UN, they've raised alarm about Jewish settler violence and vandalism of mosques. Now, we all know you have a huge security apparatus there. What's stopping you from stopping them?
Well, first of all, there were several terrible cases of vandalism. Terrible, I don't mean necessarily violent, but for us, this is exactly the problem, that the perils are problematic. When we build an apartment or we find a graffiti saying something terrible, I mean it, death to the Arabs or something of the kind, the whole country is in a turmoil. The Prime Minister has special meetings with the security chiefs and demands results immediately. When 10 Jews are killed in a blow of a suicide bomber, well, it's normal, you know, there are terror attacks because the poor Palestinians feel desperate. But if we are talking about this specific problem, there is a small group of people, crazies, criminals, whatever you call it. Some of them of late have been arrested, some will be arrested, and I can only promise you that left-wing, right-wing, establishment, anti-establishment in Israel, we all have the same opinion about these people.
Okay, and just one final question with the week that's in it. I want to ask you about Iran. The EU, of course, slapped the oil embargo on Iran this week. Of course, you've welcomed it. But what's going to happen next?
Depends on Europe and the European Union and on some other forces around the world, be it America, Russia, China, because we definitely are very happy to see this step, finally, the embargo of the European Union on Iranian oil. But as I was talking to many colleagues of mine here, members of the European Parliament, my nightmare is that people will say, wow, it was so difficult to reach this consensus. We've finally done it. Now we can go and have some rest. Obviously, the embargo itself, if there will be no world unity, no further pressure, will allow Iran in the meanwhile to develop the nuclear weapon. And my nightmare really is that one day we'll see Ahmadinejad appearing on the TV and saying, you can have your tactical differences, you can continue arguing, you can push your resolutions with this or that success. I already have the bomb. And one thing we have to keep in mind, definitely his first and utmost goal is to ruin this, as he calls it, Zionist entity. He can't even pronounce the words, the State of Israel. But he has other goals too, and some of them, I guess, are in Europe.
Well, all eyes are on him at the moment. The EU, Catherine Ashton's office is still waiting for a reply from the Iranians on that oil embargo. OK, Minister, thank you very much for meeting the EUObserver today.
Thank you for having me.